friends, Vika here. This week I have officially finished Warstorm by Victoria Aveyard, and so you know what that means? I have read a whopping 1,985 pages of the Red Queen series. That was the final installment of the series, and so I think I'm just gonna review this series as a whole. And yeah, so let's get started. So for those of you who don't know, the Red Queen, this synopsis is mostly going to be about the Red Queen because I don't want to give any spoilers. But the Red Queen is about a futuristic dystopian type of society where we now have two distinct races of humans. We have silvers and we have reds. Reds are just ordinary people like you and me, and silvers, they are humans, but they all possess a sort of ability. So they can either manipulate air, water, fire, and until the four nations lived in harmony. That's funny because the Fire Nation but the king and the royal family actually possess the ability to control fire. So that's kind of funny, but beside the point. So silvers possess a sort of ability to manipulate something. They have superpowers, so to speak. And so how you can tell the difference between reds and silvers is the color of their blood. So reds, their blood is obviously red, and silvers, their blood is obviously silver. And so what can you imagine happens when you have a set of people living in harmony or together, and one set of the people have power and have a certain ability? There's obviously certain class issues that exist. So as such, reds are usually poor and they're seen as less than and discriminated against and usually live in poverty, and while silvers is the ruling people in power, and they are able to stay in power because they have power literally. And so yeah, as such, there are a lot of issues that are created from this huge class distinction. There's a lot of rebellions, people from the reds especially, rebelling against I'll hold this, there's a lot of reds rebelling because of how poorly they are treated and just the lifestyles they live. So like as the silvers, they keep getting richer and more powerful, while the reds, they just keep dying. And so another issue prevalent in the book is if you are red, if you are not an apprentice of some sort by the age of 18, I believe, you automatically get conscripted and sent off to war to neighbor with the neighboring kingdom, the Lakelands. And so this war has been going on for 100 years, and it doesn't seem like it's going to stop anytime soon. So the reds just keep getting sent off to slaughter, more or less. And so this Red Queen is in the perspective of this girl named Mare, and she is a typical red. And as such, she doesn't have any sort of talents, and she has no job or ability. So in order to support her family of like 6, she becomes a common thief. And so she's been stealing all her life, and then one day things happen, she gets caught, and so she gets sent to the palace to work as a servant. And what happens is before I get into that, at the palace there's a competition of sorts. There's 2 princes in the kingdom of Norda, and one of them is of age to get married. And so what the palace always does is they hold a competition, and the most powerful and the champion female silver, the winner, is gonna be married to the prince. And so the most powerful people are only able to hold on to the throne. And so this is all broadcasted live on television, and what happens is Mare, it's discovered that she has powers, and so there's this huge cover-up by the palace to disguise her as a silver and hide her in the palace. And so she just becomes this whole new person. And so throughout the series, I'll hold it up. Throughout the entire series, we see a whole self-identity crisis that comes because of this. And because mind you, she's just a normal red girl. She shouldn't possess the ability. She has the ability to manipulate electricity. And so she shouldn't have any sort of powers. And so imagine if it were to be discovered that a typical red girl has powers. There's already such a huge divide between the 2 races, and there's already so much tension and clashing. So imagine the whole world and universe is going to just come into collapse. Everything you know doesn't exist because reds are able to have powers. So there's this huge cover up and no one can know. And so she's just masquerading, and yeah, she lives in the palace, and that is the premise of this whole book. And then so the whole series takes up from off of that. And at the end of the Red Queen, or just throughout the book, there's a lot of political intrigue, there's a lot of betrayal, there is love. There is such a weird love triangle thing that exists in this whole series. I think I'm gonna draw it out for you because it's just so insane. One second, I'll be right back. It's pretty intense here. I'm gonna draw this on my whiteboard, but I'm not gonna put any names. I'll probably put like, because it might reveal a bit that happens in the later books. So I'm just gonna do like, we'll figure it out. I am not an artist in the least. I have 0 artistic capabilities, but here we have, I didn't want to put any names, so we have the star of our show, which is Mare, and then a direct line means a sibling thing. So you can see there's 3 siblings. So as you can see, almost everyone is in love with her. So that was kind of the cons of this book. Like, I hated how everyone's always like in love with the main character. Like, come on. So she has a sibling who has a crush on someone who's in love with her, and she has 2 pairs of siblings who are both in love with her, who have someone else kind of going on kind of thing, and that has a sibling who has a person that in their life that sibling is in love with. Like, what is this? This is like a it looks like a teeter-totter. This is a teeter-totter love thing. So yeah. So that whole love teeter-totter thing was one of the cons in the book, at least in my opinion. Like, everything was way too connected. Like, it was kind of how in Gossip Girl, everyone always just ends up falling in love with each other and everyone dates each other. It's like, that doesn't happen in real life. Like, it doesn't. But that being said, the initial love triangle that occurs in the first book is the foundation of a lot of problems that happen in the rest of the book. So you have to like, a lot of people, they don't like the love triangle, but that's just because in the first book, you know, it's super tropey, it's YA, you have to understand that. But going into the rest of the books, like, it's a huge reoccurring theme that causes a lot of the problems that happen and occur. That being said, a few other cons, or I guess we just talked about a con. Let's talk about some pros. A good thing I really liked about the book is just the issues that they covered. So like the class issues that happened, how they talked about war and violence and rebellions, and there was also disabilities and people of color covered, and just a lot of political intrigue and betrayal. And it wasn't like a thriller, but like there was a lot of things, like there's a lot of betrayal within the book. I mean, it's a court, it's at the palace, like what do you expect? And yeah, also the character building was super good. Like, you understood all the motivations behind all the characters, especially when you go deeper into the books, you see more perspectives. So the first book is mostly or entirely written in Mare's perspective, but as you move on, my thumb worked out perfectly. As you move on, you see more perspectives, and like in the last book, there's like 5 or 6 different perspectives in the book. That being said, though, that's also one of the cons in the last book. There are 2 brothers, Cal and Maven. I must state that Cal is my ex-boyfriend. I was in love with him for the first 3 books, and then I was over him by the 4th book. I was like, I'm tired, I'm bored of you. You haven't really changed. And let's move on. But Cal and Maven, they're 2 brothers. It was kind of hard to distinguish their voices at times. And so, like, that kind of bugged me. That might have been just me because, I don't know, that's just how I read it. But that was one of my issues. But that being said, a lot of the character building was good, but it was also super realistic for the setting it was in. Like, you understood the motivations, and just you understood why things happened and the consequences of a lot of actions. It was pretty realistic. A con is that this whole series takes place in like the span of a year. Like, if you have read the series, you understand that so much has happened and so much occurs, and then I'm like, oh, this is like, I was reading the 4th book and I was just like, oh yeah, this has been like a 3-year process. And then Mare mentions like, oh, it's my birthday coming up, like I can't believe that only like 7 months ago today I was this and this. I'm just like, that happened 7 months ago? I was like, how is that not like 3 years? And so I guess a lot of it was kind of hard to grasp when like that came into my mind. Like, it happens really fast, but when you're reading the book, it kind of feels slow. So it is kind of boring and slow at times. And yeah, also it was kind of convenient how things turned out. I didn't like that. Just like, not very many people die in the book. I'm gonna say that, until like not very many major characters die. And like, keep in mind there's like a war and there's a lot of like her happening in the book, and that kind of bugged me. Like, it's like how it's everything got tied up in a nice little pretty bow, shall I say. And yeah, at the end I was kind of just bored. I was like, just end it already. I mean, there's a lot of action and whatnot, but just like, it was moving a lot from a different perspectives, and it was just like, okay, this is happening, which is good because you need to see what happening in different places and different people in the books. But it was just kind of, just that being said, like, there's a lot of just happening at one time frame, and it's super slow, and there's not a lot of like moving on. At least that's what I thought. And yeah, another con is just like, it was super like me against the world. Like, Mare is so isolated and just like thinking everyone's against her, and also everyone's in love with her, and oh my, she was kind of annoying. At then, like, I kind of liked her in the first few books, and then it was just like, I kind of grew annoyed of the main character. I was much more interested in the other sideline characters a whole lot more than Mare, the main character. So those are my thoughts on the Red Queen series. I definitely recommend you guys to read it if I know I understand it's not for everyone, and I understand all the issues with the books. If you're into the whole like a lot of class divisions, it's very much like it's a Hunger Games meets The Selection meets X-Men kind of series and Game of Thrones. Like, it's like that kind of jumble. And if that intrigues you, I recommend you read it. It's YA. It can be tropey, but if you look if you look beneath the surface, there's so much more covered, and that's why I feel like a lot of people like ignore going into this series, and the people who don't like it. You just have to look beneath the surface, dig through the sand. And yeah, those are my thoughts. Let me know if you were planning on reading it, or have you read it. If you disagree with me, let me know, because this is just my opinion on this series. And yeah, I hope everyone has a good week. I'll post another video or two by the end of the week. So yeah, have a great week, everyone. Bye.